Dr. Ayyappan, distinguished panelists, distinguished participants, I wish to thank the organizers for asking me to share some thoughts. I've had the good fortune of attending the previous congresses. Dr. Nair is here, who organized the first one in Florida. Then Dr. Dennis Garrity, who organized it in Nairobi, and Dr. V.P. Singh and the ICR, who have organized it here. They have all done a remarkable job. First of all, I want to thank them for keeping the flag of this congresses, agroforestry congresses, planted by Dr. Nair. It has been kept alive. Let me say a few words about, probably I'm the one of the few here who has seen the birth and growth of ICRAF. ICRAF was an institutional mechanism for providing an opportunity for research, development, extension, training, education in the field of agroforestry. The original document which prompted the establishment of ICRAF, mainly by IDRC of Canada and CEDA, supported by CEDA, was the paper by Dr. Benet, Biel and Cote called Trees, Food and People, Land Management in the Tropics. One particular sentence from that report I have taken because that highlights the importance of agroforestry. More than half of all the land in the tropics, although too dry, too steep, or too rocky to be classified as arable land, is suitable for the practice of agroforestry. Dr. David Hopper, who was then the president of IDRC, convened a small group meeting, 4 or 5 of us, in 1977, September or so, I forget now. And there we decided to support the recommendation of Benet and his colleagues for the establishment of a council for research in agroforestry. That is how it was born, and the first director was Kenneth King from FAO, who just retired as Assistant Director General. This is the rationale, and I am glad ICRAF has grown and has also become a member of the larger family of CGIAR, which has just been supported by a contribution of over $1 billion. For the first time, the CGIAR budget as a whole, the whole system of 16 institutions, has reached a level of $1 billion. That means there's a lot of donor confidence. This morning, the Minister for Agriculture of India, Sharad Pawar, rightly said, we are producing a lot of grains, a lot of fruits and vegetables. India is also the first in the world in milk production, nearly 140 million tons of milk production. But nevertheless, what we call South Asian enigma, South Asia as a whole has made good progress in agriculture. According to the latest UNICEF report, extraordinary economic growth in South Asia. Unfortunately, population largely depend on agriculture, 65%, 2/3 are in agriculture. Yet 2 out of 5 children are stunted. 39% of children are stunted in South Asia. The other data, you can give a lot of data on extensive malnutrition, both in India, in spite of our progress. I hope the National Food Security Act, which provides social protection to over 75% of our population against hunger, will make a difference in the next couple of years, because the only country which has enacted a legislation conferring the right to food, the legal right to food, the Indian, but still, South Asian enigma, region with the largest number of children with stunted growth. First 1,000 days in a child's life is the one which is neglected in most of the programs. 1 year in the mother's womb and 2 years outside. Low birth weight babies, almost 1 in 4, less than 2.5 kilograms. Undernutrition reduces a nation economic advancement by 8%, according to a paper in Lancet. The top 6 countries, the highest number of stunted children in terms of numbers. As you will see, unfortunately, my country, India, tops the list of nearly 61 million children who are undernourished. At the same time, the UN Secretary General has launched last year at Rio de Janeiro what is called a Zero Hunger Challenge, and the goals to be achieved by 2025. These will be continuation of the UN Millennium Development Goals. They will become UN Sustainable Development Goals, from Millennium Development to Sustainable Development. But in this particular case of Zero Hunger Challenge, 100% access to adequate food all year round, 0 stunted children below 2 years, 0 stunted children below 2 years, sustainable food systems, 100% increase in smallholder productivity and income. Finally, of course, zero loss or waste of food. If you look at all these areas, 100% access to adequate food, stunted children, sustainable food systems, 100% increase, agroforestry has to play a very major role in achieving the UN hunger challenge. Because it is now well recognized, and it was mentioned this morning by Tony Simons and others, agroforestry is a pathway to food and nutrition security, livelihood security, ecological security, and climate risk management, mitigation and adaptation. I would just like to say a few words about them. I go first to nutrition because in spite of the enigma, what we call South Asian enigma, production has gone up but still extensive malnutrition, extensive undernutrition. Agroforestry, how does it become a remedy for the nutritional maladies of an area? If you make a malady remedy analysis, what is the malady? It may be vitamin A, it may be iron deficiency, anemia, zinc deficiency, vitamin B12, vitamin A, and so on. Each one of them, there are trees which can provide the remedy. Nutritional malady, an agroforestry remedy. For example, drumstick, Moringa oleifera, 25 times iron in spinach, 17 times calcium in milk, 15 times potassium in bananas, 10 times vitamin A in carrots, 9. It's a wonderful plant, according to an article in National Geographic, recent article. Similarly, a recent article in Science, the United States leading new science journal, the Breadfruit Institute has found that the perennial trees produce more food in dry weight per hectare than corn, rice, or wheat, a fruit rich in iron, potassium, and vitamin A precursors. Let me give a few more examples. In the Kerala, for example, where plantation crops are very common, in between many times, these tribal women mainly grow the diascorias and the tuber crops. They will keep it in the soil, they will take it out only when they require. It's a sort of an insurance against hunger. And leveraging agroforestry for nutrition is a good example. Amla, or what we call amla in India, the Phyllanthus emblica, is a wonderful source of vitamin C. All these could become in an agroforestry system. You can select those tree species which are providing you the nutrition needed in that particular area. After a nutrition survey, they're also in between the intercrop between trees. One of the common crops is pearl millet, Penicetum typhoidis, and now under the biofortification program, the CGIAR has a biofortification program in which ICRISAT is one of the members. My center is also one of the members in the biofortification program. The only product which has been marketed in India so far is this hybrid pearl millet, which has 70 to 74 parts per million of iron. Very good, marketed by a company. Now, coming to end of this particular course of overcoming, it is not enough if you go on talking, we have produced 250 million tons, 260 million tons. After all, you have to put faces before figures. We always forget to put faces before figures. There are a large number of people who are undernourished, who are children are underweight, and so on. Last year was the International Year of Quinoa. I am happy to say the United Nations is now becoming more aware of some of the plants which are there, which have been neglected. Sometimes we got the orphan plants. Quinoa is well known. I don't know. There must be here from people from South America. It was a very important one millet. This year is the International Year of Family Farming. I think our president mentioned it in the morning. Next year, 2016 is the International Year of Pulses. This country is very short of pulses. In fact, one of our problems of hunger, apart from undernutrition, is the problem of protein hunger. And the third is the problem of hidden hunger caused by micronutrient deficiencies. So we are very interested in increasing the production of pulses. And I have been proposing to the UN and major agencies, most probably it will come through, an international year of underutilized crops or orphan crops, because these, a word was used this morning, of climate smart. They are not coarse cereals. Somehow in literature they have been called as coarse cereals. They should be really called climate smart nutri-cereals. And I'm happy to say that the Indian Food Security Act provides for the distribution of these crops under the PDS, public distribution system. Not only wheat and rice, but a whole series of millets, minor millets, the grains which are eaten by tribal families, rural families, and so on. You know very well, you're all agroforesters, there are various combinations of tree species according to the area, mainly by ecology and economics. Ecology and economics determine the choice of combination, whichever is environmentally sound, which can do well, and whichever can give you more income. If you, for example, if you go to the Terai region, I remember 40 years ago when we were promoting the new varieties of wheat. In the Terai region, there were either mango, they don't want to cut it down. So very good varieties of mangoes are there in between the wheat crop grew. So there are a large number of permutation combinations which are possible. But as I said, the two pillars of selection from a farmer's point of view are ecology and economics. But they are the now my friend Dennis Garrity last agroforestry congress in Nairobi talked about Haidar Albida as one of the means for the evergreen agriculture leading to an evergreen revolution. That means improvement of productivity in perpetuity without associated ecological harm. That's what it turned. But the major advantage in today is building of soil carbon banks. In fact, in this country, our response to fertilizer in many cases is low because of low soil carbon content, unless the carbon banks built up. And there are also opportunities in the agroforestry system for enriching soil health or soil fertility by introducing other plants, like, for example, the Sesbania rostrata, mainly from Senegal. Original home was Senegal. Ostrom in France popularized it in different places. It fixes nitrogen both in the stem as well as in the root, very efficient nitrogen fixer, and it can grow very well as an intercrop. Now, one warning about agroforestry is whenever you grow any genotype over large areas, same genotype, you run the risk of getting infection or disasters of pests and diseases. This happened, I was in the Philippines at the time, when I saw subabul, or what we call subabul, or Leucaena leucocephala. Mainly the strains came from Dr. Jim Brubaker in Hawaii. Very good strains. They were part of a dendrothermal plants generating power, but suddenly all of them started dying. Very fast they died. An epidemic still it took place. Therefore, in agroforestry, most important thing is, like in crop husbandry, you have to develop enough of genetic variability. We should not have. We may have phenotypic similarity, but genetic divergence is very important, otherwise we have a problem. One of the common systems in this country, particularly states like Kerala and so on, is a tree, livestock, fish integrated farming system. This is also in West Bengal, the whole of eastern India, where there are a lot of local tanks, either banana or coconut or one of them is grown along, and then there is fish mainly by means of polyculture, katla, mrigal, rohu, and so on, polyculture of fisheries. Now coming to the climate change issue, the global mean surface temperatures, according to the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is our most authoritative source of information, because leading scientists all over the world are part of this IPCC. I've taken one or two issues only. One is the warming of the planet. Global surface temperature change by the end of the 21st century is projected to be likely to exceed 1.5 degrees centigrade than normal. But some experts feel that 1.5 is too modest belief. It may go to 2-3 degrees more than normal. It has enormous implications. In crop plants, for example, in the case of wheat, the duration of the wheat crop will be reduced by 1 week, every 1 degree centigrade higher. Punjab, for example, will lose about 400 kilograms per hectare as a result of reduced duration, unless we have change a new breeding strategy and go to per day productivity than per crop productivity. We can do that. We can change the tactic, the scientific checkmating, what we call the scientific checkmating of the adverse impact of unfavorable weather. That has become a very important method of research. Water scarcity, frequency of drought will increase. Rise in temperature could increase the risk of heat or drought stress to crops and livestock. The length of the growing period is likely to change, become reduced. That means the yield will go down. Again, many of these impacts are, what the world and the climate convention calls for common but differentiated responsibility. There is also common but differentiated impact. For example, northern latitudes may benefit with little higher temperature because their duration will be extended. Hours will be curtailed, they will be extended. Sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia are believed to be some which are very prone to the adverse impact of climate change. And hence, that is why I said we must plan on scientific checkmating of the adverse impact of unfavorable weather. Mitigation, reducing greenhouse emissions. Already the RED program is well known to you. That's one of the answers. How do you use the tree species for the purpose of sequestration? Methane emissions from animals. The best thing is the biogas plant. And of course, in the case of ammonia volatilization, urea and so on, neem-coated urea and other methods of checkmating are there. So a biogas plant, a few fertilizer trees, and a farm pond in every farm, a family farm. This year is the International Year of Family Farm, and we should promote a biogas plant, a few fertilizer trees, and a farm pond in every farm. Global area under agroforestry, I need hardly mention to you, this audience, a very large area is under the total potential is estimated to be 288 million tons per year of carbon sequestration. And there are some plants which are very efficient in it. Agroforestry as a change to climate change adaptation. In the case of drought, the tree component through the deep roots explore a large soil volume. In the case of high rainfall, pumping excess water out of the soil profile. And temperature, increase soil cover and multi-strata cropping pattern system, utilize the light sources. So there are problems, there are also, that is what I have been using the word scientific checkmating, the adverse impact of unfavorable problems. Carbon sequestration, option for climate change mitigation. It is well recognized. A direct role of agroforestry, carbon sequestration rates ranging from 1.5 to 3.5 milligram carbon per hectare per year in agroforestry systems. Indirect role, both direct role and indirect role. Agroforestry has also some indirect effects on carbon sequestration since it helps reduce pressure on natural forests. Carbon sequestration potential of different land use and management options. This is from the IPCC report of 2000, modified. You will see they have taken wetland restoration, restoration of degraded lands, agroforestry, forest management, grazing management. But you see from that, I put a different color there. You will see agroforestry as the largest potential of carbon sequestration. That's well known to you. Now I'm going to concentrate only one more item which is not normally discussed in detail. The mountain agroforestry is well known. Even arid zone and semi-arid zone agroforestry is well known. But the coastal agroforestry is one which has not reached as much attention. We have in my center concentrating on coastal agroforestry. Percentage of saline area in South Asia, Pakistan has the largest, but it's also inland, not only coastal but inland. India, Bangladesh, Nepal, all of them have. Sea level rise is another area where there is a common denominator of agreement, because there are a number of areas in climate change where there is no common denominator of agreement. But in terms of average mean temperature over the industrial era, and also in terms of high level sea level rise, there is practical unanimity in saying that the global mean sea level has seen by 0.19 to 0.12 meters, estimated from a linear trend over the period 1901 to 2010. Now, what is going to happen, we don't know. Global mean sea level will continue to rise during the 21st century. Under all RCP scenarios, the rate of sea level rise will very likely exceed the observed during 1971-2010. About nearly one-third, according to UNESCO, one-third of the world population live very near the coast, and the impact of sea level rise, millions of hectares of land would be affected. Small islands, if the president of Maldives is standing here, he will say, you talk about threat to biodiversity, but you are not talking about threat to my small islands. I will go down, he says. The previous president had even a cabinet meeting under the sea to dramatize and create the attention of the world as a whole to the threats faced by small islands, as a Lakshadweep group of islands, the Andaman group of islands, and so on. So increased incidence of storm surges, and above all, countries which have a long coastline will have to be prepared for climate refugees. In other words, if the water table goes up, they will have to relocate themselves. So you'll have to have a plan for locating them in alternate location. Our own coastal, in my center, coastal agroforestry program, was largely concentrating on various halophytes, including mangroves, many other halophytes, and because seawater, we have called the seawater farming for coastal area prosperity through a coastal agroforestry program. It is a whole series of atriplex and a whole series of tree species which have a commercial value. Salicornia is one which has a commercial value, and in between you allow the seawater and you have the marine fisheries. Our chairman Ayyappan is one of the leading authorities. This kind of systems were developed long ago. For example, in Kerala there is a region called Kuttanad. There, over 150 years ago, the farmers developed a coconut all along the borders, rice in between, and a fish. During the rainy season, monsoon season, a rice crop, and the non-monsoon season, when the salinity of the water goes up. It's a salinity management. So coconut, rice, fish rotation along the... And this system was recently accorded the status of a globally important agricultural heritage system by FAO. FAO has now started this new series called GIAHS, Globally Important Agricultural Heritage System. There are two areas have been recognized in India. One thanks to Mr. Naveen Patnaik, who was here this morning, the Chief Minister. The Koraput area of Orissa was the first to be declared. It's an agro-biodiversity-based farming system as a heritage. The second was the Kuttanad below sea level farming system. The below sea level, the government of Kerala is establishing an international center for research and training in below sea level farming, because parts of Sundarbans, both Bangladesh part, Indian part of Sundarban, our own islands, Maldives, many of them are deeply interested. And the difference between the Dutch kind of polders, the polder lands of Holland, and the Kuttanad, these are bio bunds. They have not used concrete bunds. They have developed locally available biological material for providing the bunds. Mangrove is a very important component. I'm glad more and more people now realize the value of the mangroves as the barriers. It's a very important component of coastal agroforestry. And the mangrove plant has one of the highest fixation, according to the Seawater Forest Initiative. Mangrove fixation is nearly 8.3 ton carbon they take from the atmosphere and 3.3 tons from the roots. A plant which is very high in terms of carbon sequestration. So what we have done, we found that there is not very many takers for conserving halophytes, because all the large international bodies which are conservation of genetic resources, they are concentrating on immediate crop plants and medicinal plants and so on. But this kind of halophytic plants are not being. So we started a genetic garden for coastal agroforestry at a place called Vedaranyam, where Mahatma Gandhi's salt satyagraha, people in India know, Dandi and Vedaranyam were the two spots where people protested against salt being taxed. The reason being, seawater is a social resource. You can't tax it. It's a people's resource. It is not a tax. I told you earlier, 97% of the world water is seawater. There are obligate halophytes. There are facultative halophytes. So if you come to our genetic garden for coastal agroforestry, you will find a whole series of salt-tolerant plants. Let me say, some years ago, I think it's 89 or 90, I was asked to lead a small team to take advantage of an offer from the then president of Guyana, Mr. Desmond Hoyt, was then the president, 89. He offered 1 million hectares of land, prime forest land, to the Commonwealth for demonstrating what is meant by sustainable management of rainforest. He told the Commonwealth Secretary General, experts come and tell me that I must manage my forest sustainably. What does it mean? I give you 1 million hectares, you demonstrate what is meant by sustainable management of a rainforest. Don't go on preaching to me, you now demonstrate what is meant by sustainable rainforest. That is how the program started. It is called the Ivokrama International Rainforest Program. I was the chairman of this program for about 15 years. And then, but what impressed me most was the enormous wisdom of these Amerindians. This is Mr. Fred Hellicock, who was the chairman of the Amerindian group in that particular area. They were singing a song, and I asked them what the interpretation was. It means like this: sky is held up by trees. If the forest disappears, the sky, which is the roof of the world, collapses. nature and man then perish. This is, you see, the ecological wisdom and their own tradition of conserving trees for posterity. We go on, many times we go to preach to the tribal people, forests are important, you are destroying them. But they know much better the importance of the forests, and if they destroy, because there may be no other livelihood. Lastly, Dr. Ayyappan, Chairman, I think Rio Plus 20, that's where the hunger program, Zero Hunger program was launched by Mr. Ban Ki-moon. Sustainable Development Goals are still being developed. They will start from next year. The Zero Hunger Challenge, we hope to launch it in India. In the month of August, we have a large Asia-Pacific conference on the year of family farming on behalf of FAO and other agencies. There, the Zero Hunger Challenge will also be launched. And then agroforestry is the pathway. If you want to go more information, I have a book called In Search of Biohappiness. I said many times we talk about bioterrorism, agrobiotic hotspots. What human beings want is happiness. So how do you develop all the biological resources into jobs and income? What is biohappiness? Into jobs and income on an environmentally sustainable basis that leads to the biohappiness era. Thank you, Dr. Ayyappan, for asking me to speak.